Greetings, everyone. Welcome to
Você
THL
sabe por
Standard
quê?
Card Review. Um, I am Lotus Knight, one of your hosts for today, and I am joined by Baze Inc. Baze, how are you doing?
Doing well, excited to be here.
Awesome. I'm very excited to have you. Our next host for tonight is Agent BWE. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Looking forward to discussing these new cards and the expansion that will be coming out in 2 days here.
Awesome. Yeah, this is going to be a good one. And I'm also joined by always Justin Time. Justin, how are you?
I'm doing well. I don't think as well as PW is by the looks of him, but yeah, all right.
Awesome. So today we are going to do our THL standard card review. Just a quick overview of how it will work. We're going to start just reviewing what were the three best calls from last time. And after talking about the three last calls from last time, we'll begin going through what we call our Dardar cards. Then we'll go through our Aeon cards, finally our Tonk cards. And we'll talk about three special questions that we've been asked. If you would like to participate, please post anything in chat. We will talk about your opinions as long as they're interesting, which most of the time they are. Um, yeah, I believe that's it. I believe we're ready to start. Everyone ready?
Yep.
Awesome.
I'm good.
So, our first thing, we're going to do the best calls from last expansion. And I'm going to call here Agent PWE to tell us what they were.
All right, so this is for most underrated cards from the last expansion review. And in number 3 for the best call of underrated card, we have the 2 and 3 mana watch posts collectively, as called by Base, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I I I guess if I were I kind of made this decision since I was a unbiased third party, and I would just say that these were should have been rated like top 10 and were absolutely busted and made the meta just awful for like the 2 weeks they were unnerfed. And so uh, I'd say underrated was definitely a good way to describe these two cards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree. It was a Base brought them up really early, and I think it was a really good point there.
Yeah, based. I remember her saying that hey, she thinks she'll see playing every deck and they're cracked, and most people were. Well, some people were high on them, but certainly not everyone. Or some people thought they would see only conditional, and she was more closer to right than all of them.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty low hanging fruit, and I just got to be the one to harvest it.
Fair. Should we go for our next card?
Yeah, sure. So I was fortunate enough, I believe, to get the second one chosen by PWE, which was Venomous Scorpid. I'll admit that I did not expect it to be quite as good as it was. I don't think anyone quite realized with the rotation of core of how good Discover generation pools were getting. But certainly it was a card that people were rating kind of average, like not really thinking about it. But ended up seeing its way into a lot of decks, omnipresent.
That's true. Especially when the priest thing became crazy. Like, Scorpid ended up being everywhere.
But yeah, I think last expansion, people rated it on the 79th out of 135 uh, in terms of cards. So I think it ended up being quite a bit stronger than that, as we were able to determine. So
Yeah. Um. So, PWE, do you want to introduce the last card?
Yes, the last card and by far the best call that probably could have been called for last expansion was by Lotus himself, and it was Conditioning, which was rated third to last by the community in out of all 135 cards. And as you know now, this card is quite literally uncuttable from Rush Warrior, which has been one of the best decks in the game for the last couple months. And so this seemingly unplayable card is kind of absurd. So, and it definitely deserves the #1 spot for underrated card.
Yeah, I still don't get how I called this one. But
Also, just to point out, I'm looking back at the spreadsheet from last time too. You have a comment on my Scorpid pick saying 100% agreed, but I'll put something else in mine. That was what you pivoted to. You're just freaking third eye.
yeah, yeah, I did really like Scorpid.
Yeah, you were 2 for 2. You just you just hitting every shot. Insane.
Now, I think we're ready to move to Stormwind. Shall we start talking about Stormwind cards?
I'm down.
Awesome. So, we are going to begin our review by talking about what we call a Dardar card. Agent PW, do you want to explain what is a Dardar card?
So a Dardar card, uh, as aptly named after Dardar Binks himself, is a very strong, obviously strong card that will have a large impact on the meta. And so these are typically cards that are rated highly and are with good reason and see play, even maybe get nerfed. And yeah,
Yeah, it's true. We did have one of the Dardar cards last time get nerfed in Refreshing Spring Water, which Baze named. To open our Dardar cards this time, Justin, why don't you talk about your first card?
Yeah, sure. Well, quite appropriately for the first card, or appropriately named, this will be First Flame. Yeah, guys, they did it. They printed Twin Slice for Mage. Excuse me? It can't go face, but you don't take damage from it if you go into a minion because it's a spell and it also has other spell synergies. They printed Twin Slice for Mage. Okay. Why is this card a thing? It's just so obviously undercosted, overpowered. It should do a lot to shore up some of the weaknesses of Mage, especially combined with Fire Sale. A lot of times this past expansion, Mage had weaknesses to early board flooding strategies, whatever taking damage, because they're limited healing. Right now I'm wondering, like, against Face Hunter, hey, this seems like it's going to make Mage a lot better. Will it be favored? I don't know, maybe. Certainly, yeah, just obviously obnoxiously strong. What do you guys think?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's just a good glue card for mage. Like every mage looks at playing this and just has a better handle on the early game. Like this is just incredible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
there's
this card is basically Orb all over again. It's just a really solid card, I think.
and in theory with the 5 mana Gadgets and Auctioneer for Mage, you could do some pretty silly drawing of your through your deck, especially if you've cast an Incanter's Flow or two. And this card will just enable that deck itself, along with Antonitis. You can chain First Flame and then next turn Second Flame and be almost there to having an active Tony, who may or may not be good, but that's a different thing in and of itself.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Any other point anyone wants to make before I move on?
Yeah.
Awesome. I'll take that as a no. I'm going to start with a bit of a spicier card here because I know not everyone fully believes this one. But I think a strong card that's going to impact the meta is the Hunter Quest. Defend the Dwarven District. I actually think this is going to be a really fun deck. And I'm very excited for it. I actually think it's good. I think you're going to keep hitting your opponent in the face and Raza them down. I'll pass to Baze first because I know Baze has a lot of thoughts on this card.
Okay, I've gone back and forth, and I am now in the camp of eventually this is going to be good. I think it's going to be really bad at launch. Everyone's going to play it. It's going to be bad because Hunter has a really hard time with the value that's needed to like actually use this, especially starting one card down with the quest, and it doesn't refill any cards. So I think after some tinkering, someone's going to get there, and it's going to be a good deck. But I think it's going to take a while, and it might take more cards. But I'm excited for this card.
Agent PWE, do you want to add anything about this card?
I hear people comparing it to Raza Priest, and while it is Raza Priest, it's definitely not the same deck wise at all. Since Raza Priest, you actually can play defensive and then kill them with the new hero power. Hunter can't really heal, can't really remove boards outside of using their hero power. So yeah, I think a more aggro space, spam them with hero powers is going to be the way to go. But I could definitely see it having a place in the meta somewhere.
Justin, any thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what everyone but you said. I think this card will be as good just as soon as they print Velen and Spirit Lash for Hunter.
That's fair.
Yeah, when I think of drawing Bola Shot and Arcane Shot in the early game and being happy about that those are the good cards in my deck, that hey, I'm completing my quest, as opposed to the bad cards in my deck that don't, then that does not seem like a good Hearthstone deck to me.
Okay. Let me pitch you something real quick. We've put in the neutral +2 spell damage into Hunter now, and we just like don't even need that many cards to go off and kill people though. It's tradable, so you can just throw it away when it's bad and you're gonna die, which is a lot of the time.
Okay.
But hey,
yeah,
when it works.
I mean, that'll be.
Hear me out. We play lock and load and fill our hand with a random hunter
I mean, you're
cards.
definitely doing that.
Yeah, okay, hold on. I wanted to look this up, what the percentage of minions are to like spells, because oh my gosh, you're gonna get so many garbage minions.
You're getting a lot of trash.
Also, yeah, the only way this deck has to remove a big minion is either Professor Slate or having a Scorpid already on board. Outside of some niche interactions of like the new Zero Mana Hunter spell, it's just like even the reactive tools they have are so situational and don't really cover all your bases. Like Priest this past expansion, where you go big, they have Hysteria. You gotta go wide, they have Blade Master, Oppo. You keep cards in hand, they have Lucia. The Hunter's the exact opposite. There's huge holes in their removal kit. All
right,
sure.
Here, I guess. So right now in Standard, without the new cards, there's 27 of 64 are spells. So less than half of the time you're getting spells off of Lock and Load.
So not as good, it seems.
No. Maybe one day.
Maybe one day. Speaking of Hunter, Baze, do you want to talk about your next card?
Yeah, we'll talk about a Hunter card that's for sure to be good, and that's Aimed Shot. This is everything that every Hunter ever has wanted to do, and that's Kill Command. So it's the 3 mana for 5 damage. So it's a little split, so it works kind of like Pierce Shot. It adds the 2 to the next hero power. Like this is just going to be what keeps Hunter relevant. Mid-range hunters, fast hunters are going to play this. Control hunters isn't a thing. So, yeah, we'll just see a lot of this card over the next year and a half.
Justin, do you want to add anything about Aimed Shot?
Yeah, I mean, Kill Command reprint. Before it was the condition of you have to have a beast. Now it's the condition of you have to find 2 mana to hero power at some point. Both were very reasonable. Seems like a really strong card, especially. Sometimes Kill Command, you'd be sad if you had to use it for removal, like opponent got a little ahead on board and was starting to snowball, like turn 3, I had to use it as a 3 mana deal 3 to stop the snowball on one of their key minions, and then you just wasted the 2 extra damage, which with this one it can be even better in that aspect, that you can still hero power it later and still keep that 2 extra damage. And certainly most hunters were only running Mankrik. This Swipe as the 3-cost spell slot for Codebane, so I think this will just get put in there alongside that, or perhaps instead of. I'm not quite sure how you build it, but that's a huge component as well.
Sure.
Probably alongside. Swipe's still good.
Yeah. Agent PW, anything to add about aim shot?
I look forward to Face Hunter surviving with only getting one new card every expansion. Um, this is this card, yeah. If Aggro Hunter exists, you just like instantly put this card in your deck when you're building it, and you don't look back. It's 3-mana deal 5. That's pretty good.
Yeah. Why don't you tell us what your first card is?
All right, and then the first card I chose is the new Paladin minion, Alliance Bannerman. The 3-mana 2/2 with Battle Cry, draw a minion, and give minions in your hand +1/+1. So basically, it's like the wild 2-mana 1/1. I think it's Grime Street Outfitter or something like that. And that card doesn't draw you a card and buffs your hand by +1/+1. And it sees play in wild, the broken format. So I imagine any deck that runs minions, and is Paladin, you put this in there, and it's insane. Hand buff Paladin, I could see being reasonable with like the new Jewel weapon and Divine Shields, or just any Paladin deck really. You just throw this in there, and it's kind of insane.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it seems like a Dardar card if I've ever seen one.
Base, do you want to tell us your opinion on this one?
Do you play minions? Yes. Do you want to draw cards? Yes. Yeah, you're playing this. This card's sweet. I think that they're actually giving Paladin draw ones that are able to push the deck enough so they don't have to print a bunch of draw because they don't want to give it too much draw. So like this is just a nice addition to that small draw engine that they do have.
Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts on this card, Justin?
Yeah, I mean, since Salhet's Pride got taken out of standard, Paladin has probably one card draw. Didn't matter at the beginning of last expansion because the deck was so cracked, you just didn't need refill to have won the game before then. But now that it's slightly toned down, you definitely need some refill. And this is efficient card draw on Paladin.
Yeah.
Probably find a way into most decks.
Yeah. Speaking of efficient card draw, my next card I think is really, really efficient, and it's going to make Warrior a lot better. It is the Harbor Scamp. I think this card is insane. It's a 2-mana 2/2 that draws a pirate, which means Sword Eater a lot of times. Like, this goes into basically any warrior because they're good pirates you want to draw. It's just a 2/2 body. It's like a better Wand Maker, and Wand Maker sees play in like half the classes right now. I think this card is going to be very powerful, and we're going to be seeing it a lot. What do you think, Justin?
I would agree with you. I printed Cage Match Custodian for Warrior. I mean, we all know how good Sword Eater is just in general. And Rush Warrior is certainly one of the best decks. Okay, you just throw this in, always find your Eater on 4. Great. Control Warrior probably runs it too, because it's just such an efficient rate. And certainly if there's a Quest Warrior, you're throwing that in as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good. I see Owl typing in chat. 2-mana 2/2 draw best card deck is good. Yeah, that's simple. Just like you
Yeah.
said.
Baze, any thoughts on Harbor Scamp?
I mean, you just put it 2 other pirates in, and it's just incredible. It drawing itself is even fine. You're not upset about that. Like, it's just like getting to play a deck with less cards in it, and you always would play the minimum cards you could play. So this is just fantastic, and you're gonna play in every warrior as long as it's in standard, pretty much.
Mm-hmm. Agent, any last thoughts on this card?
I agree with everything that's just been said, and I think this pirate alone is the only reason that the Rush Warrior Quest has any chance of becoming a thing, along with some new pirates getting printed, is you really want to draw this to accelerate the completion, and maybe you'll be able to draw some good pirates off of it. So look forward to seeing this card for the next 2 years.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of deck-defining cards, Justin, let's talk about your next card.
Yeah, Bolnar Hammerbeak. I think this is so insane because it doesn't even need to be deck defining. Like I presume most people have seen the combo by now, which I'm really hyped on for Yashraj Shaman. You play a single copy of Dunk Tank and Circus Medic, and it's an infinite damage OTK with Bolnar into Yashraj, either through discounts or bloom or something. Uh, because even if you run out of board space, you can send a Dunk Tank space and use the medics to kill other medics on board to give you more Dunk Tanks and medics. And obviously it can just be 20 even if you only have like a medic, even if you weren't able to corrupt the Dunk Tank. So that's cool. But it's also just 2-mana Bran. It's a 1/4. It has 4 health. This card feels like when what's it, the secret guy, the 1/5 first came out. I'm forgetting the name.
Hanar.
But Hanar, yeah, it's just, why does this card have so much health? Like, Hanar you could save to late game and get lots of value with secrets, or you could just play it on curve and it stuck a lot and cause people to rage quit because it was a Christmas tree turn 3. Like, why does it have 4 health? You play it on 2, you play Questing or Dungeoneer on 3, and you draw 4 cards, or you save that late game to guarantee it. And then there's the Uber Omega High Roll, which will happen some percentage of the time. Is you play this on 2, and it sticks. So you're playing some slow deck, maybe a Ramping Druid, or a Quest deck that doesn't have isn't able to answer 4 health on turn 2. We all know Crab Rider, so it's a difficult stat line to answer. And either you're on the coin or you play Kindling Elemental turn 1. So then on turn 3 you can play Granite Forgeborn, the Shaman 4/5 that makes all the elementals in your handed deck cost 1 less. That immediately gets doubled to make them cost 2 less. And then if you have a Custodian or a Tempest or another another Kindling Elemental in hand, you can play that as well. Now because it's 0 mana, it's free, and then that triggers the Battle Cry again. So now they all cost 3 less. You can it won't happen all that often, but a good 5 to 10% of the games you're just gonna have a blowout like pre-nerf Gibberling style start where you're gonna get like 10-10, 15-15 worth of stats on board on turn 3 and just utterly win the game. Even if it's not that big of a blowout, like, okay, I just played Keleseth turn 3, basically, a super souped up flow. Yeah, that'll happen.
So,
what do you think?
let's see, Agent PW, any thoughts on Bolner?
So I see this card as ETC, but it's good to play on turn 2, and also a lot way better. And ETC is already like really good in the deck that it's in. So if your deck doesn't play battle cries, obviously you don't run this in your deck. But any deck that plays good battle cries like Elemental Shaman, or I definitely don't see this Yasharaj corrupt OTK deck being real in the slightest. This is definitely awful and just a meme. But maybe there's some funny things that you can do with Bolner that's not just like drawing 4 cards with Dungeoneer. But yeah, definitely the thought of just tempoing it on 2 and it probably living and then you getting insane value sounds pretty scary.
Mm-hmm. Base, what do you think about this one?
It's just going in almost every shaman deck ever. Like, it's like a better brand. I mean, at least it's a class card. But I'm excited to play with this. I guess the card standing next to it, the first flame, is like the only thing that makes me a little bit more hopeful. Is we're getting a little bit more ways to deal with it. So yeah, at least there's that. But this card's gonna be super strong.
Mm-hmm. I agree. The next card that I want to bring in, Agent PW was trying to convince us this was completely broken before, so I'm going to bring him in. What is your second card that is a Dardar card?
All right. Apparently, not everyone sees this as broken as I do, but the new uh, Death Rattle card in Demon Hunter, Persistent Peddler. It's a 4 mana 4/3 with tradable that says Death Rattle summon Persistent Peddler from your deck. And this is a 4 mana 4/3 with that summons, like, it patches from your deck basically. And so it's really a 4 mana 8/6. And this is just insane. You run. It's so sticky. It's like playing Fishy Flyer, but for only 4 mana, and Fishy Flyer instead draws you a card, and that card is kind of maybe playable, not really, but uh, this card obviously goes in Death Rattle Demon Hunter. It goes without saying. But I think personally that I just jam 2 of these in every Demon Hunter deck known to man for the rest of time because it's just that good. It thins your deck, which every deck wants to do. It's got pretty decent stats for being a 4 drop, and if you somehow get unlucky, which you really shouldn't, but somehow you can trade one away in order to guarantee that you get it from your deck. Seems all right.
Yeah. Base, what do you think of this one?
I mean, I agree with everything PDLE said. Anytime you play minions, you put this in your deck right away. It's like playing 29 cards and having a super solid 4 drop. Like, this is just always been good. I mean, coming from Yu-Gi-Oh, this is like a very common thing that you did is you would just pull out, repeats of stuff. And like, I'm just very excited to play with this card. I think this is one of the coolest uses of tradable that they did. Um, yeah, I'm just incredibly excited to play with this card and every Demon Hunter that is an OTK.
Yeah. I'm actually not that excited about tradable keyword, but I think this is one of the best ones. The fact is, it's a really powerful card. It's just a good tempo card as well. It's a 4/3 that resummons a 4/3, thinning your deck in the process. And I wonder if we're going to end up just having a tiny Death Rattle package just with like the good Death Rattle cards, and this being one of them. That might be something that just makes just goes into so many decks because the 7 drop is still insane. Justin, what do you think of this one?
Yeah, so this card is like Loetheb. Okay, so you play it, and then like Loetheb, your opponent can't blow up your board because another one comes out, right? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Now card good for all the reasons you said.
Yeah. Speaking of good cards, Base, do you want to tell us the final Dardar card? And very quick before you do, I do want to tell chat if you want to put what cards you think we're missing for Dardar cards, please do. We can very quickly just go over any interesting cards you all mentioned. Base, what is your final card?
So I have Best in Shell. This card is exactly what Ramping Druids want. We'll talk a little bit more about Druid after this because they didn't really get anything great this set other than this card. So all the Ramping decks are going to be playing this. It curves after like even just a coin overgrowth. So you can play this and then recover. It like solar this instead of going for the what's it called, the ward. Like, this is just so much taunt. Like, we just haven't seen like Druid get anything this good defensively since Spreading Plague, and it's a little scary. And then on top of that, it is tradable for those times where you don't need it. This card's just fantastic and going to possibly push Druid in that defensive like takeover late game strategy that people love because it doesn't really fit in with the token one, but we'll talk a little bit more about that. I don't think the attacking one's going to work out too well, but we might see like a get on the board with some cheap minions because of Elune and Battlemaster. I think that's the other option that we might go, and you could even consider playing this in that just because it's a nice solid refill on the board.
Mm-hmm. Since you mentioned it, I think this is a good point for us to talk about the state of Druid. This is actually the only Druid card we're going to talk about today. So, how do you see Druid looking this expansion? Do you think they're gone? Do you think they're going to have a chance? What archetype would you expect to see a lot?
Me?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm expecting Token to still be solid, and I'm expecting the Jombre Druids to exist because of this card. I think this really helps those. It's not nature, but it's still gonna get you there and let you not die and put down the Anacondra. But I mean, this might even help out alignment. We'll see.
Sure.
I think that we're mostly gonna see Jombre. We'll still see clowns because everything will get nerfed and then clowns will come back. But until things get nerfed, clowns are gonna be missing.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll still see the two decks, and we'll probably see Jombre Druids get a bit stronger. The kind of mid-rangey token decks.
Sure. I'll ask Justin. Justin, what do you think of Best in Shell, and what do you think of Druid as a whole?
I think I was very disappointed when I learned that the whoever translated card name for this was not the real one. It's not actually called Shell Company, because holy crap, that would have been good.
Oh,
But yeah. Best in Shell, good card for sure, for all the reasons Base mentioned. It makes me wish I could run more than 2 copies of Solar Eclipse in my deck, but whatever. You'll just be very happy when you draw it.
Mm-hmm. Now, Agent PWE, what do you think of Best in Shell and the general state of Druid for next expansion?
Well, I do think this is very strong card. Like if you think about it, it's like 8 mana worth of stats for 6 mana, and also has tradable for some reason. I'm gonna make the potential argument that maybe it's bad because you play Overgrowth on turn 4, and then you're not at 6 mana, you're at 7 mana. So you don't want to play this card because then you float your mana, and instead you want to coin out your GA or whatever you're doing. And in GA Druid, it's not a minion, so maybe it doesn't get buffed by survival, so you don't play it. Except it does because you play it first and then play survival. But because you play Overgrowth on 4 and it doesn't curve perfectly into that, maybe we don't play it in Druid. But I think that it's quite strong, and that you just in Jombre Druid especially just gives you those few extra turns you might need to just really pop off. And Druid in general, there's some potential with Taunt Druid now with some shenanigans of copying with the 3 mana 2/4, and maybe like playing composting so that you refill your hand. But I think that'll just be a high roll deck, and that the old Druid decks will just take some new cards and continue the way they were before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, a lot of comments on Druid. Now, before we move on, I don't see any big comment in chat from people who want to name any Dardar cards. If you would like, there's probably not enough time for us to talk about it since we're moving to our next segment, but I do think we all agree that there are more than 8 good cards that are well rated by the community. These are just some that we picked, some that we like a lot, and they're very different from the cards that we're going to talk about in our next segment, which are the Aeon cards. So, Base, do you want to tell us what an Aeon card is?
Fuck Aeon. They are overrated.
Yeah? An Aeon card is a card overrated by the community. And to open our Aeon cards, I'm going to call Justin. Opening again. Justin, what is your first Aeon card?
Yeah, so I'm not a fan of the Warrior Quest, although some other people are here. Raid the docks. I think this will be good for pinging JR, but we don't want to ping him too much, so we won't put this in our decks that often because it's not a good card. Well, I mean, it's dependent on the package around it, but the card tools just aren't there right now. C-Max asking what it does in chat. I think he knows the answer to that, so maybe someone can help him out with that. But anyways, what it doesn't do is appear in Hearthstone decks. You have to play 7 pirates overall to get the Juggernaut, which gives you a free pirate, deals 4 per turn, and gives you a weapon. It's just a meh reward. It doesn't win you the game instantly. It doesn't even fire until a full turn after you invest the 5 mana to playing Captain Rokara, the 5 mana 7/7. The first part of the questline reward is to draw a weapon, but that's after playing 3 pirates, and most of the time you're playing him 2/3/4, which means it's Sword Eater on 4, and then you never play the weapon. It's just very awkward. You have to put like 12 or 15 pirates in your deck total or something like that to play it on curve consistently, which means playing a lot of bad cards. There's 2 different shells you can basically play it in. There's the aggro version, and then people are talking about playing in control as a finisher. Everyone who talks about the aggro version, it seems like most of the time they forget that like there's no burst left in standard anymore. It's like they're somehow assuming there's this core for Pirate Warrior like there used to be of Leroy and Heroic Strike and Arcanite and just stuff to finish the game. No, Pirate Warrior like right now is a bad zoo deck. It's a swarmy early game minion based deck that passes turn 1 every single time. It's god awful. Playing in control might be a little more legit, but I just suspect there's going to be stronger patches of cards, and that the finisher isn't strong enough when you compare it to other things in the format, like Doomhammer, like Mage Burn, like Clowns, like Priest Grinding, etc. So I just think the card's completely unplayable this meta, although a very, very flashy effect, I must say. What do you guys think?
I'll answer this one. I actually think this card is better because of the supporting package. The 2 mana 2/2 is going to make a huge difference. You still have 1 mana 2/1 discount a weapon. You have enough small cards that I think this will be a meta deck. Even if it won't be the best meta deck, it's going to be an annoying deck to face. But it's also going to be a hard deck to build. I think this is one of those decks that will take a while until people figure out what they want to bring. Or how, especially how to build it. Like, what is the optimal way to build a Pirate Warrior deck? Now, after my opinion, I want to ask Agent PWE, what do you think of the Warrior Quest?
I think that the quest reward is pretty interesting. I think it can like solo some classes, some matchups on its own, like maybe priests. It'd be kind of difficult for them to outvalue this juggernaut that it summons, but playing 7 pirates is so bad that you probably just don't even live long enough to get the reward down. And even if you get the reward down, like it was said earlier, stuff like uh, clowns or even just demon hunters OTKing you, it doesn't get there fast enough. And pirates suck. The reward doesn't suck, but it does suck in the fact doesn't make up for you having to play stinky pirates. And so it could be playable, but it's definitely not as good as people think it is.
Baze, any thoughts on this one?
I went back and forth on this, and I think it's gonna be like a nice like tier 2 kind of deck, maybe 3. I think it's fine. But yeah, it's number 4 by the community, which is like way higher than it needs to be. You're going to be dealing about an average of 3 damage a turn, and that's counting having Gorehal in the pool. So like you're not going to be swinging super hard. The pirate bodies are like worth 3 mana on average. Um, it's like a cool effect, but I just don't think it's gonna be enough to carry the deck into like a tier 1 position like a lot of people think. I think you'd much rather be just like if you're gonna play a mid range pirate or mid range warrior, you're just playing rush warrior still.
Sure. Now, Baze, what is a card that you really think people are off and that really is not going to take anyone to the next position, in your opinion?
We're going to talk about Ignite, the mage card. 2 mana, deal 2 damage, shuffle, and Ignite that deals 1 more than the most recent one you did. And we'll talk about, again, because we're going to talk about decks we really like for the new expansion. But I think that this card is a cool effect. We get to summon an even larger fireball. But like most of the time, this is going to be a worse Forgotten Torch. Like Mage doesn't go to fatigue. Mage is trying to kill quicker than that.
Mm-hmm.
Like it does go face. It's extra burn that goes face. So maybe in spell damage stuff, this is pretty solid. Yeah, it doesn't go to fatigue yet because but like most decks now have plans for fatigue if fatigue's a matchup. Uh, Mage can draw through its deck pretty quick, but like it can't continually draw through its deck really quick right now. We'll see. Um, I don't see this card being like just in every mage. I think it could possibly Tecton as a one of and maybe the fire mage. Um, and I
Mm-hmm.
think that when you discover this in the right situation, it's going to be incredible. But it got ranked 28th out of the set, and I think that's just way too high for this card.
Sure. Um, Agent PWE, any thoughts on Ignite? Is it going to ignite the meta?
I definitely see this card being put in at least as a one of in Spell Mage. You draw enough cards that drawing into the the upgraded version a couple times should be reasonable. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure what you cut, but there are some pretty bad cards in Spell Mage currently, so you could probably get away with putting this in your deck. This the odds are that it doesn't just like completely win a matchup on its own because no deck is going to fatigue like that. But it could if something tries to do that, like maybe like a control warrior that brings back Elysiana. I definitely think it's playable. It might not be like insane, but I definitely would say that it's a pretty reasonable inclusion in most mage decks.
Mm-hmm. Justin, anything you want to add about this one?
Yeah, I pretty much agree with what most of you guys said. It seems playable, but very overhyped and maybe niche, fringe. One thing I'd like to add is that you guys didn't talk about is I feel like a lot of people in there maybe didn't consciously think about this, but they see it like Jade. Where if you had two Jade idols in hand, or whatever, Jade cards, you play the first one, you summon the 1/1, you play the second Jade idol, it summons a 2/2. That's not quite how this card works. It shuffles in an extra copy that deals the extra damage. So if you have two Ignites in hand, they both deal 2 damage. And it both shuffle in copies that deal 3, but scales half as fast as Jade's, which is quite significant, especially when you're talking about, I don't know, quote unquote, infinite value cards. Obviously, Game of Hearthstone doesn't go on for infinite amount of time. Normally, someone makes a power spike at some point, which allows them to snowball their way to victory. It's definitely a finite amount of turns that will go on, a finite amount of times it will draw this on average. And it doesn't actually scale that quickly. I mean, it's more burn, it's more something that's affected by spell damage for these spell damage heavy mages, but I don't think it's much more than that. In fact, I wouldn't be shocked a lot of the time if this 2-mana deal 3 that gets shuffled in isn't actually the card you're looking for in your deck. Like I'd much prefer still Room Door deal 2 with Discover a spell tacked onto it.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'm going to take this moment since this is the final mage card we're talking today, and I want to ask, Based, what do you think is the state of mage after this expansion? Is mage getting enough to make it a tier 1 deck? How do you feel about mage with this?
I mean, I think that Spell Mage is still the nuts. Flow is still probably one of the best cards in Standard. So I think we'll still see a lot of that. They got in some really good early board control tools in the First Flame and Fire Sale. So I think that just slots into the current Spell Mage deck, and we still see that, and it's even better. They can put in the one Ignite and just shred anything that goes late. It's not a terrible card, but I think Mage is in a good spot, and then I'm pretty excited about Fire Mage. I don't even think you really need the Ignite. It may be a one of in that deck, but I think that Fire Mage has a good, solid potential to be that good mix of minions, just enough to you know supplement the spells and kind of win on board with some cheap board control tools and some burn, and then also a pretty sweet draw engine in uh, the elemental.
Mm-hmm.
Ping mage still is bad. Don't worry.
So I opened both Antonidas and the Mage Quest, so I'm hoping at least one of them is good. Justin, is one of them good? Do you agree with Based?
Justin stepped away real quick.
Oh, PW, do you think? What is your thought here?
I think that running in minions and mage is sus, and so fire mage is not really a thing you want to do when flow is and springwater are like the best two mage cards. Well, maybe not springwater anymore, but definitely after you've played flow, springwater is nuts. But the problem with spell mage before is it kind of just dies to like face hunters and stuff like that and stuff that can get boards easily. And with new fire sale and the first flame, those are just actual good cards that you can slot into spell mage that will make you not die. And you kind of already beat slower decks like control warrior and control priest.
Hmm.
And so it spell mage might be back. Oh, not that it ever really went away, but I can imagine a world in which spell mage is everywhere and everyone is sad again.
Yep. Yeah, I feel like just that meta where everyone was just playing Incanter's Flow or Deck of Lunacy on 2 was one of the worst things I've ever seen in terms of balance, or especially in terms of unfunness whenever you see that happening to you. Um, I don't know if Justin is back to talk about Mage right now. He did run to the bathroom. Justin, are you here? Seems like not yet, so I'll bring in the next card. I kind of want to bring an interesting one because I think a lot of people are rating this card really highly, and it is Overdraft. This is the Shaman tradable card that unlocks your mana crystals and deals damage equal to the number of unlocked mana crystals. So the first thing I want to remember is that Lava Burst is a card that never saw play. And this might be better in Wild than it is in Standard, but I don't know that this does enough. Or Lava Shock, yes. Um, but I don't know that this does enough to be considered that high, especially to be considered one of the 13 best cards in this expansion. I think the Shaman Quest doesn't look as insane as some say, I think. And I don't know that this card is going to make it viable. I don't even know that this card makes the cut because the first thing that your quest does is basically undo this card. It's just you do the same thing. So I'm not convinced about this card. Um, Now, Justin, since you are back, what do you think about Overdraft? Any thoughts about this card? Is it overrated?
Yeah, I generally agree with you. There's just not many overload cards that we're generally wanting to run in standard right now, and the lack of a nature tag on it is a major tax because 3-mana Ancient of Lore is a really good card that I want in most of my decks. So you have to be running a really situational deck to be both running the amount of overload and not wanting to be running 3-mana Ancient of Lore to accommodate this card. And even then, it's still so situational. Like most turns, it'll only be 1 or 2 turns per game where you're going all in on overload. You need it exactly then, and if you don't have it then, you're sad, and you'll still be shuffling it back with trading it a lot. I mean,
Right.
obviously the potential's there, but compared to the rating as you described that people gave it of 13th best card in the set of 135, it seems quite overrated. I'd agree with you.
Yeah. Now, Base, what do you think about Overdraft?
Yeah, like the tax of the nature is probably the biggest drawback, and I think this card will see play. I think the Shaman Quest might actually see some play, and this card is a good support tool to it. I don't think it's gonna be doing the like Dream, uh, I guess max 19 damage. So like we'll never see that. And then when you do, obviously that's very flashy and exciting. But like it's just a good supplement to if you want to be overloading. And it's ranked the 13th in the set, which is absolutely incredible. Like you'd be thinking that's going in every shaman. You're going to be building around this card specifically, but like maybe it's just like a one of, and you just trade it uh, as you need. You know, I think the tradable makes it playable, but this card is a little overhyped.
Mm-hmm. Agent PW, thoughts on Overdraft?
I think when this card was initially revealed, it was like one of the newer cards after the big reveal schedule had come out and those had started leaking, and everyone thought of the perpetual flame synergy where I overload like 27 mana with perpetual flame and then overdraft my opponent for like 10 damage and then unlock my mana.
Mm-hmm.
And while that sounds extremely good, if your deck is running both of those, how are you drawing any cards? It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't act like you can't play Dungeoneer, and as we know, pre-mini set, Shaman without Dungeoneer is not good in the slightest. So I could see it seeing play if somehow you like brew con and then like send a bunch of spells face and then like finish them with overdraft. But there's dream scenarios of like overdrafting someone for like 5 or more damage. Seems highly unlikely in a actually playable deck.
Mm-hmm.
It's decent, but definitely, like you guys said, not top 13 good.
Mm-hmm. Now, sticking to Shaman, why don't you tell us what your first Aeon card is?
So the first Aeon card of mine is the new Elemental Granite Forgeborn in Shaman. It's a 4 mana 4/5 with Battle Cry. Reduce the cost of elementals in your hand and deck by 1. And I'm not like 100% sold that this is under or overrated, but my gut tells me that you don't actually want to play this card in an elemental shaman deck because you have to run a lot more elementals than you want to, and it doesn't come down till turn 4 when your hand is like approaching emptiness. And so discounting like your top decks that you were just gonna play standalone anyways doesn't really matter. And then like I don't know, maybe you can play out one more elemental on the next turn, like play fire elemental, which is not really a good card anyways. On turn 5, it's like I don't know. I don't think I'd play a Yeti for something that doesn't really benefit a good deck. And in a good deck, you really don't want to play this. Like with Doomhammers and current iterations that play elementals, it just doesn't really make sense.
Now, before we ask everyone about this card, I kind of want to ask you, Agent PWE, what is your thought on Shaman? Is Shaman an actual viable class next expansion, or are we back to what many have seen for quite a while, which is a Shamanless meta?
With the new Bolner and the 4 mana 6/4 elemental that's Ziliax, and the class seems pretty good. I could definitely see it just continuing to do the stupid Doomhammer things that it does, although maybe slightly differently in a
Mm-hmm.
more controlling way. But they could continue with the elemental route as well. But the overload quest seems like it could work, but it probably doesn't. And the card like Tiny Toys, I'm really interested in seeing if you just slot that in every deck because it's like a Jandis, except you can run 2 of them, and there's 4 opportunities to high roll instead of just 2. So that card could be a little scary, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Um,
I think this is a really interesting one. It's just a it puts Shaman in an interesting state, especially this set pushing Shaman in like 4 or 5 different directions at the same time. Base, were you going to say anything?
I've played a bit of Shaman recently. I think that this card's solid. It's ranked 9th by the community, which even I'll say is like super high. Um, I think that Shaman, Elemental Shaman, might turn into like a kind of a mana cheat and try and like get on board a bit wider, quicker, and beat you down with the new weapon. Um, and maybe like we see like kind of a good stuff shaman start coming out. We have like good ways to increase battle cries. Like we just have general cheaper card draw. Maybe we can actually get away from needing Dungeoneer. And that's the deck we're going to be playing, Tiny Toys. I don't think this will go in, but you'll have like a small elemental package and probably still Dungeoneer just in case you do hit the nature and get to draw 2. But like the future of Shaman, I think, is looking pretty solid. I think we're going to see the quest at least tried, and see it try and actually branch out in a few more directions than just the elemental. I do think that the Granite Forgeborn does not go in the Doomhammer deck because I think that actually reduces the ways you corrupt Dunk Tank, which is absolutely essential to that deck surviving.
Justin, what do you think about this card and Shaman as a whole?
Yeah, I would agree with what both of them said. I think it's a bit overrated. 9. I think it's one of the last cards that go in Elemental Shaman, but I think it does go in. I get your point, PWE. That's it's just it's only a small discount. Like right, like in general, I think most casuals overrate the effect of forever or until the end of your everything in your deck when it's really just okay, next 3 draws or something like that if they're elementals. But I mean, it's a few kindling elementals stapled together. Obviously, a 4/5 for 4 is not as good as a 1/2 for 1. I think that's good enough to see play, especially given, like Base said, being able to cheat it out early, or the combo I mentioned before with just being able to dump your entire hands, so like maybe 5% of the time on turn 3 high roll if you have Bolner on board. But it's not making or breaking the game. If there's a good card in the mini set or a meta shift that you really need, or on a tech card or for something, I could see it getting cut. And Shaman as a whole, oh boy, it's remember it was unplayable. It got a whole bunch of good cards. Yeah, I'm still a believer slash but believer more as a meme than anything else from the Yasharaj OTK finisher to control Shaman, but certainly got upgrades to all the other existing decks, whether they're Doomhammer or Elemental or whatever the good stuff that was Base was alluding to, or maybe even new archetype like Command the Elements, Quest Shaman. So. I would not be shocked if we see multiple playable Shaman decks this expansion.
Yeah. Baze, I'm going to stick with you for your second Aeon card here.
Got Cargo Guard. That's the 3 mana 2 for Pirate that gives you 3 armor at the end of every turn. This card's fine. It got ranked 15th by the community. I mean, it feels like a worse Quartermaster, Evil Quartermaster, because we're not getting a sweet lackey out of the deal. I don't know. It feels like one of those cards that just kind of threw at you because you can play it in whatever warrior, and I think you're gonna put it in and out of decks. If you really, really want armor, yeah, you play this, but I don't see it getting played a ton more than that. It'll be nice off Raid the Docks sometimes because you'll get it free and get a little bump in your armor.
Justin, anything you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, the one place where I could see this thing play is what if it's worse than Shield Main, but what if you run it anyways because you get it off Scamp and you're a Control Warrior and you don't really want to run Sword Eater as your pirate because you want Axe on 4 and there's too much competition between Axe and Rancor. And I think there's 1 or 2 other cards that has the cost 4. Owl in the chat would know. At least the deck didn't run Sword Eater this past expansion. So like, maybe you don't want both of its effects, so you cut Shield Maiden for this because they kind of do the same thing, even though this one's a little worse. I don't know. It's a nice curve to it to 3. Yeah, it's certainly not great. I would agree with you. It's overrated from the residual Quest Warrior hype. And I've looked at Theorycrafts for Control Warrior, and they look pretty unplayable. And that's not just me. Even Owl thinks that. And if he thinks Control Warrior is bad, then it probably really is bad. So maybe we'll see this card not at all, even if it does go in Control Warrior.
Agent PW, anything you want to add about this one?
I'm pretty sure people rate this card high because they also rated the quest high, and I mean, you put the pirate in your good pirate quest deck, and so it must be good, right? Well, the issue is the quest is bad. The pirate, outside of being a pirate for your quest, is not good enough. Maybe if you desperately need armor, you run it. I'm pretty sure you don't. I wouldn't go as far to say it's unplayable, but It's definitely not good, and my good Rush Warrior deck doesn't even think about running this card, so I'd say it's definitely overrated.
Yeah. A fringe inclusion in an off meta deck, not quite the deserving of the 15 out of 135 rating.
Now, I want to bring up the next card, which is a card I don't get how it is rated, number 31 out of 135 in the coin concede sheet, and that is, I don't even know how to say the name, but it is High Lord for Dragon, if I didn't make any mistakes. And now, this is basically a little bit better than Don Hancho, and Don Hancho was completely unplayable. I don't know if Divine Shield Paladin is going to be a thing, and we'll talk about specifically Paladin and Paladin's place in the meta in a little bit. But I feel like this card is just too slow. It costs 6. You kind of need a deck that builds around it, and it's an upgrade, sure, it's a valid upgrade on Don Hancho, but it's still very slow. It just doesn't look to do enough to me. Let me ask Baze, what do you think about this one?
I mean, this is so much more upside than Don Honcho, and I think that this card is legitimately super strong. Um, I think that this hitting either the lifesteal minion or the rush minion, or like if it hits the lifesteal minion, it is such a huge swing. But like in the deck that you're playing this, most of the hits you're gonna, buff are just gonna be super game impacting, and I think this card is going to be incredible. Like the game is so much different than when we had Don Honcho, where we didn't see hand buffs work, and now we have Rush, and we have other things that just like this works on. And I think that deck is going to be legit. We have the Mule card that is going to be able to take hand buffs nicely. I think we're going to see Paladin hand buff for real this time.
Mm-hmm. Justin, anything you want to say about this one?
Yeah, I'm more in your camp, Lotus. I mean, I could see it seeing play. I'm not quite, don't have a strong opinion about this one, but whenever I see like a board where this would be good, like with multiple Divine Shields sticking, I'm just asking myself, why aren't we just killing them with buffs? Like, what? A lot of the theory crafts of the Divine Shield decks aren't running buffs. They're not running the Blessing of Kings or Blessing of Authority. It's like, okay, I'd rather just stick something on this and win the game, or Conviction. Like, right? Like, okay, maybe if they have multiple minions sticking on turn 6, just with Divine Shield, just kill them with Conviction. Or, oh, okay, your deck's already running Conviction. Then instead of playing this 5/5, what if we run the new Loatheb? They give them Wind Fury, so they actually die with Conviction. I don't know. Uh, I think some sort of sticky mid-range Paladin deck will exist this expansion, because it wasn't that far off at the end of last expansion. It did definitely get some upgrades, as you guys have alluded to. But I feel like this is either going to be the last card in it, or maybe get cut altogether. Broom is certainly its best friend, but as Milo has pointed out before, that part of the reason hand buff has worked in Wild is charge, and only having Broom to synergize with it is a little more meh.
Agent
In
PWE.
fairness, Lifesteal and Rush are good too. Sorry.
True. No worries. Agent PWE, anything you want to add about this one? Oh, is PWE not here?
Maybe muted.
Okay, wait, I didn't realize I had actually muted myself that time.
Oh, okay.
All right, I'm a fan of this card. I see hand buff Paladin being a real thing. It's got a lot of Divine Shield synergy and decent Divine Shield cards you can run. I definitely think that with the 4 mana card that gains Rush when it has over 4 attack, it could land on that. It'd be pretty good since you should not have little minions in your hand anymore at that point. But what I really imagine is you play this card on 6 or whenever, or yeah, and then you land at least a buff or maybe even 2 on the new neutral legendary Varian, and then you drop like a 12/12 or a 17/17 with taunt, divine shield, rush, and it draws you 3 cards, and then you just think to yourself, "Wow, I just won the game." I get your point where you could think that by just playing Conviction and killing them, but I'd like to imagine that you run Conviction already and that this card is just like an addition to everything else. I would definitely not cut something like Conviction to add this into my deck.
Hmm. Now, I kind of want to talk to you, PWE, because your next card, I think, is one of the most hyped card this expansion, independent of whether it's good or bad. And I really like that you're bringing it tonight.
Yeah, so my next overrated card is the new Dark Bishop Benedictus. I feel like most camps are either this card is cool and bad or cool and really good. Like really bad or really good. And apparently the people who filled out this form were mostly in the really good since they made it 15 out of 135. And I'm not really sure if you can get away with taking the non-shadow spells out of your deck and losing your healing hero power. I personally am a big fan of the priest hero power not in shadow form. I hesitate to even enter shadow form when I randomly generate it during a game now. So I don't even think I really want to like make my deck bad in order to get it at the start of the game. Yeah, I can ping off some minions at the beginning, but what about when my opponent starts running some bigger minions and then I can't clear it with Zarella because I can't run holy spells that heal me, and I can't heal myself to after the mage hits me in the face with spells, and I can't heal myself after the OTK Demon Hunter sets me down to 24 to combo me. It has like the new weapon, which could be decent against aggro. So I guess if there's a lot of aggressive decks, this could be reasonable. But uh, I don't see it working. I think you have to cut too many good priest cards.
Now, what is your thought on Dark Bishop Benedictus?
I mean, we're going to see this card a ton. This is going to be the new Res Priest in the gold ranks that everyone plays, and we're going to hear about how it needs to be deleted from the game because it's so overpowered. But um, I don't think this card's terrible. I mean, it's definitely not 15th best. Um, if this card works, it's not because of this card. It's because of the needle, the 2 mana risky skipper weapon. And this card just like just meshes well with it, and then we have a reason to actually follow it up and kind of play a control game plan that ends the game with damage, and this is part of it. But Shadow Priest does not excite me.
Mm-hmm. Justin, what do you think of Benedictus and Shadow Priest?
The two of us, you before, couldn't have summed it up any better. It's like, oh, okay. What if we just ran the tune-in OP busted weapon, but also ran Zarella and Oppo? Just ran shadow spells to make
Yeah.
it work. Like that's the good part of the deck. I mean, it's a slight upgrade on your hero power, like Pee Wee was saying, but some matchups is even worse. And we have to put a Pit Fighter in our deck, which Priest without much card draw. I mean, you won't draw it all the time, but when you draw it, because of that low card draw, you're gonna be really sad. Uh, I don't know. It just seems like a worse version of reactive Priest. And obviously, I presume most people have. Maybe this is the casual see all the new cards for an aggressive Priest, and they just assume they're good, or at least some of them are good. But that deck looks absolutely awful. Like again, there's no burst. There's no neutral card you can put in like Leroy to finish people off, and obviously there's no Mind Blast in Priest anymore. The deck's just unplayable. I mean, the pieces are there, so it's not like it will forever be awful. Maybe it'll get more shadow spells in the future, but yeah, I don't want to put this in my deck.
I'd like to add that I said there were two camps. One where you think it's a fun card and good and fun and bad. I live in the third camp that doesn't exist, where I don't think it's very fun or interesting and it's bad. Shadow Form is just kind of stupid. I don't know. Resing big minions. Now that's fun and interactive gameplay right there. Shooting people for 2 damage. I just play Hunter forehead.
Sure. Now, we talked about Shadow Priest. Justin, what is your final overrated card here?
Yeah, so this card is not a shadow card, so that might be why some people think it's bad, but I think it's bad for another reason. Shard of the Naru. I mean, when this was announced, I sometimes look at the Hearthstone subreddit. When this was announced, literally in the title was, oh, confirm new priest card, parentheses, aka this is going to be nerfed at some point, so don't dust it. Like going, what? What is this? People are like, oh, Master Spell, or Zeddy put out a meme on Twitter of Master Spell in 2014 versus 2021, like 3 mana power creep. It's not like you really ever wanted to play Master Spell in the first place. It's not like it was worth 4 mana, and somehow people feels like are missing, because of the similarities to the card, that they're missing that it's not both. You have to choose one or the other. It doesn't draw your card. Just silencing everything's not that great, and most of the time when people are in Spellbreaker, or a silence effect in their deck, it was because they were an aggressive deck looking to get through taunts for lethal. As a reactive deck, whatever, a control deck, looking to delay the game, most of the time you just rather remove your opponent's stuff than silence it, with few exceptions about specific cards like Ralgor, where you tech in an owl, but again, that was control versus control. Yeah, I just don't know why I would ever want to cast this card, which means why am I playing in my deck as opposed to any other bad tradable card? Like, I want this in deck as much as I want the new Frostwolf Warlord, the 3 mana 2/3, because I'm playing it, I'm hard casting it the exact same number of times as I'm getting hard casting Shard of the Naru in Control Priest. This card is exactly a buff to Wand Maker, because you're going to get Focus Will less, and you're going to get 1 mana tax instead to draw a real card from your deck, and that's going to be great. And that's all.
Now, before we move to other people, Justin, I want to ask you, what do you think is the state of Priest looking like after this expansion? Is Priest going to continue its dominant run that happened this expansion, or not really?
I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if some of these were late term like changes of balance, because the dev team of all the complaints about Priest in the past few weeks or whatever months of people saying, oh yeah, it grinds people out, it's annoying, because all these cards are clearly geared around a very different Priest strategy, and I think most of them are just kind of overcosted. Other than Needle, I'd be surprised if any of them see play without more support. But given how Priest tanked 2 nerfs recently and still was the most brought and most banned class at DreamHack, perhaps it'll still be okay. Perhaps Priest will still find a way with 0 new cards. But yeah, I mean, Call of the Grave and Shard of the Naru will be interesting off Wand Makers sometimes, so it isn't all old, but I don't have much hope.
Mm-hmm. Now, since you were talking about Priest earlier, Agent PWE, what is your thought of the state of Priest in Stormwind?
I think the cards that Priest got were probably some of the worst out of all the classes. I could Control Priest will probably continue to stay the way it is and maybe be okay. Hopefully not. Hopefully, if Priest continues being good, they'll play some of the new cards and they will die from like Priest Quest. I definitely don't think the class will be as good as it is now, and I think the set really didn't do it much favors in terms of being relevant.
Mm-hmm. Baze, any thoughts on Priest you want to share?
I mean, first I want to talk about Shard of the Naru, which like this is one of my favorite cards of the set because they finally just nerfed Priest Wand Maker to hell. Like this card is so bad. They gave it another terrible 1 mana spell. Wand Maker is dead. Thank you. But Priest is gonna be fine. It'll be weaker because it has to deal with more like a wider range of decks now. We have a lot of decks that are gonna have damage off board and like ways to finish the game and do things like that. So it's gonna have to retool its decks, but I still think we'll see a Control Priest doing okay.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't have put it any better. Um, shall we talk about our next category? If you have our viewer, if you want to comment any cards that you think are overrated, now's a good time. We can talk about it really quick. If you have any card that you think is an Aeon card, um, just write in chat and we can talk about it later. We can talk about it after we talk about our Tonk cards. So now tell me, Justin, what is a Tonk card?
Yo, Turtle in chat. As we all know, Tonk card is a card that used to be good, but now is really bad, really washed. Okay, no, sorry. Underrated by the community, it says here. I guess alternate definition. Weird. But yeah, I guess that's. Oh, is that what you guys got cards for? I was taking really bad cards for this one as well, but I guess the rest of you put underrated cards, so we'll go with that.
Sure. I was taking it as underrated cards. Um, now to start our underrated cards, based, what is a card that you think is really underrated?
So Devouring Swarm, the 0 mana hunter spell that you select an enemy minion and your minions attacked in the order they were played, and any die that return to your hand. So it was not rated terribly by the community, but I just think that this is the first step that Hunter has taken to get a genuine mid-range like strategy in a long time. I used to think that Face Hunter might play this. I don't think so because I don't think you want it in the deck. I don't think you want to draw it. But I think that if we ever see a mid-range kind of hunter that actually plays a little bit of value, a little bit of tempo, kind of stuff, this is the card that enabled that. But it's not. It might not be for a while that we'll see this.
Mm-hmm. Now, before we ask other people about this card, I want to ask you, Based, how do you think of the general state of Hunter in this expansion? Are we out of face Hunter land? Are we going to play different decks? Are we going to play Quest? What do you think?
I mean, I think that people will play Quest because they want to play Quest, and I think Quest will, like I said, I think Quest will eventually get there. I don't know if it's now. Maybe someone will figure out the balance to both get the value and control to finish the quest and then burn out the opponent. I don't think so in the first, at least, probably month. It might be a deck building challenge for someone like Last Champ or someone. Maybe like a Sidisi, a Hunter main, maybe Ron Mexico. But Face Hunter is here to stay for sure. And then it's possible we could see like a mid-rangey deck that makes use of Devouring Swarm, but unlikely right now. We'll see.
Justin, what is your thought on this one and on Hunter as a whole?
Yeah, so I'm concerned right now that it doesn't have a home, though I agree with Base long term it probably will. It goes in Quest Hunter for sure, because you can get back Wand Makers and Scorpids, which seems really good with it. And it goes in Boar Hunter, if that's a deck. So you can suicide off boars immediately if it's the last one to get the weapon, or just to get them back. So that's kind of cute. But yeah, Face Hunter, I don't really want to be getting back like tokens from like Adorable or from Coltar Pack Runner. Just like or a lot of Face Hunter minions are just only good when they're played on curve because you're looking to curve out with initiative. It's only really good with a Wrangler. If you play Wrangler turn 4, get another copy of it turn 5, then suddenly you have 2/9/7 rhinos in hand. I don't want to get back a 5/5 rhino. And if you're not happy about the card you're getting back, it's just like 1/4 of True Aim Crescent, which is kind of mediocre. So yeah, I don't think I think its rating is honestly pretty fair. But it may be fringe playable or very good part of some off-meta decks. Though certainly if you're a Quest Hunter believer and if that deck becomes good, I would imagine this would be a big part of it.
Agent PWE, anything you want to add about this card and Hunter?
This card sounds good, but then when you think about the cards that Hunters has, like Justin said, you don't want to like pop off with Kolkar and then play this because like the 1/1s already have rush, so it seems unnecessary to put this in your deck just to combo with that. And then you don't want Kolkar back because you just spent all your spells that turn, so then it's just a 2-mana 2/3. That sucks. You want to play it with good battle cry minions so that you can get some more value once they return to your hand and not like replay uh like 1/2s and stuff like that. And so in Face Hunter, there's almost no chance that you're playing this card. Maybe in some stupid Rhino deck that like what's his Death Star kind of deal. Maybe you like play this card so you can have even more rhinos to attack into the enemy, and that's kind of silly, but maybe a thing that happens once or twice. Quest Hunter, it's sus at best because like Wandmaker and Scorpid are like the only good minions for you to target with this spell. But like Scorpid is really good, so maybe it's played just for that reason. But uh, not this card and Hunter minions just doesn't go together well like at all. And I expect Hunter to continue going face. As said before, it might try the quest. The quest could be okay. Anything that involves like buffing minions is just terrible. It never works.
Mm-hmm. Okay. As for our next card, we're going to talk about a card which we actually, or a class that we haven't mentioned at all. Agent PWE, why don't you tell us your first Tonk card?
So this card is ranked 78 out of 135, so it's kind of around the middle of cards, but I think it'll be pretty good as the rogue quest called Find the Imposter. And I think the SI cards are pretty bad, but they're not terrible. Like you play the quest on one, and then you can play on curve like a 2 and a 3, and you'll get the tempo back that you lost by playing the quest and these kind of bad cards with the gizmos because they're like really good tempo, and you get two of them, and then you get Scabs at the end who adds all five, and the thought of just utilizing all these tempo cards with the SI cards, which are also tempo, and you might be able to get away with just value bombing the opponent while also like smacking them in the face and clearing their board and doing all that stuff. And I think the the way the gizmos work, especially having like the Better Dream and these really good 1-mana cards, can make the deck really work. Um, I'm not sure how you build the deck at all, really. I didn't really think about it, but just seeing the theory crafting streams and seeing it get played, it seemed decent and definitely seems like one of the better quests uh, compared to the rest.
Mm-hmm. Now, I just want to ask you before we move on, what do you think about Rogue this expansion? Is Rogue going to actually be playable? And is this card making it playable?
Miracle Rogue will probably always be playable, although maybe not good. I think this card might actually be better than Miracle Rogue. It's like a real win condition. I would say that Miracle Rogue doesn't actually have a win condition other than Octobot, which is a pretty good win condition actually.
Yeah.
But uh, I'd like to believe that this could be at least like tier 2 and that new Rogue gameplay might emerge in one way or another, and that the class might have some relevancy throughout the expansion.
Mm-hmm. Based, what do you think about the Rogue quest and Rogue as a whole?
I mean, Rogue is by far my favorite class, and I'm pretty excited about the quest. I think that it's going to be solid. I think it's one of the easier quests to complete. I think the question is going to be what kind of draw package do we play alongside it. I think once that gets figured out, it'll be quite solid. And I think we're going to see the regular Miracle Rogue here to stay as well as the quest. I think that's pretty much what I'll be playing. possible that we also just play Poison Rogue and we throw in Garrotes and use that for some extra burn damage in the deck. But I think we'll see the regular rogues and the quest rogue here to play.
Yeah. Justin, anything you want to add about Rogue or this card?
You guys said it well. The other package that, in addition to the ones based mentioned you could run is the stealth package. Hasn't seen play for a while, but the 2/2 SI card has stealth, so that's some natural synergy. And then some of the cards you get off of the reward have stealth as well. So perhaps you can just deal 30 damage through a bunch of stealth minions. I don't know. This definitely seems like a deck building challenge, which I don't know the best way to build it, but I mean you play some cards that are better than invoke cards, but you don't get lackeys, but every other time you get a better lackey. And then for around turn 7 or 8ish, you don't play Galakrond and generate a massive swing. You play a 5-mana 7/7 and give it stealth and get a bunch of other cards that cost 1 that should cost more than that. Like, if I squint, I can see the comparison. It probably seems playable, and yeah, I'm surprised it's not higher than some of the other quests that seem really bad to me.
Yeah. Speaking about weird cards, I want to bring in the Demon Hunter Sigil, Sigil of Alacrity, or however you say that word. This card is one that I think is actually being really underrated. A lot of Demon Hunter decks, like turn 1 you can play this turn 2 with a hero power, and getting 1 mana discount can be pretty major. If you can get 1 mana discount on Skull, if you can get 1 mana discount on really anything Demon Hunter plays pretty much, because I don't think they play a lot of 0 mana cards, this just has such a huge effect. So I think this card is actually way better than it seems. And I'm going to take this as an opportunity to talk a little bit about the state of Demon Hunter. I think Death Rattle DH is getting a really good tool that's going to make sure that deck remains playable. And I do think Lifesteal Demon Hunter remains the same. You're going to play Sigil of Alacrity there, but that's kind of it. Maybe you play the new 4/3 package or something. And I'm not convinced of the Demon Hunter quest. It's one I've oscillated a bit, but I don't actually think it's that good. But I want to open this one to everyone. So we'll start with Justin. Justin, what do you think of Sigil of Alacrity and of the state of Demon Hunter going into the next expansion?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much what you said. Remember back in the day when Raynad talked about why like a beta flare was good? It was not because of the destroying secrets or stealth minions, but just his claim was that 1 mana draw a card was good enough in Hearthstone at the time. Obviously, we've come a long way since there, but how close is this to 0 mana draw a card? Just make a 29 card, 28 card deck. It's not that close, but it's somewhere in the range. And certainly for decks that you may be floating a lot of mana in the early turns and also really like the mana bank discount like OTK then it could actually be better than 0 mana draw a card in cases. So I would the turn delay is definitely a downside, but I think this still finds a way into OTK which this past expansion really had like maybe 26 or 27 cards agreed upon, but the last few there are no great options. It was kind of just what it felt like. This could go in those. I'm dubious that we'll go in some other decks, but which have a higher cost of paying 1 mana and waiting a turn. But given what you mentioned, that's raid 82nd, and like this seems like a surefire card that I want to include in some decks. I would agree with you. It seems pretty underrated.
Agent PWE, any thoughts on Sigil of Alacrity?
I think this card is not great. In Demon Hunter, you don't want to play this unless you're looking to draw cards, and that would be Quest or Lifesteal. And Quest Demon Hunter just makes 0 sense whatsoever. You draw cards and then discount them, but you want to play the cards you drew to draw the cards, and then you don't get the discount, and then once you've drawn all the cards, then you get even more discounts for your deck that doesn't exist. So definitely, if that became playable, which there's absolutely no chance you'd run this, but I think Lifesteal Demon Hunter will continue being a thing. I think you can maybe run this, although I don't think it's necessary. I think that like hitting it off a skull, you'd rather just hit like just your spectral sight or your acrobatics, and I feel like you draw cards fast enough now that that's not a problem. But I think that the new I Beam card, that's just like I Beam but worse, basically, might
Mm-hmm.
actually see play in Lifesteal Demon Hunter as just another Lifesteal card, because old Lifesteal Demon Hunter ran Soul Cleave usually as a one of,
Mm-hmm.
just for some extra redundancy, and so that you could play it and still have a way to OTK. And so maybe that gets slotted in there and makes the deck a little different, but I don't think this more delayed card draw is what Demon Hunter is looking for.
Mm-hmm. Base, anything you want to add about the sigil or about Demon Hunter?
I think the sigil's fine. It definitely is very underrated. I think you just play it in several demon hunters. I think Lifesteal Demon Hunter is like one of the ones that you don't, like other people said. And then yeah, the quest is nothing. Um, I think we might actually be able to see a resurgence of like a mid-range demon hunter with
Mm-hmm.
kind of like the fell discounts and maybe stuff, and you might actually play it in there. Maybe in Death Rattle Demon Hunter, cheap mana a little bit is always pretty good. You float a lot of mana, especially when you have so many 3-cost cards as Death Rattle Demon Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Lifesteal Demon Hunter is still just going to be very strong.
Mm-hmm. Now, as for the next card, Justin, why don't you tell us what card you have as the first taunt card?
Yeah, so I have Lothar, which is rated 92nd out of 1 of 35, and I mean, I guess people disagree with me. You guys can sound off, but I just assume this is just going into Rush Warrior. It was a card last expansion that had, or a deck last expansion that had 25 cards, and you were really unhappy whether you put in the final 5. And curving into Troublemaker seems good enough with this. It's not Rag, it's not that good, but it only costs 7, and it can attack. It removes something and then makes a big threat. Seems like what Rush Warrior wants to do. Uh, I don't know. What do you guys think? Oh yeah,
Before
Big Warrior 2, as Milo is yelling at me in the chat.
before we talk about what we think about the card, I just want to ask you, what do you think is going to be Warrior next expansion? Is Warrior down? Is Rush Warrior surviving? Is Warrior not going to give up? Is it going to be stronger? Is it going to keep on surviving? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of talked about this before about Harbor Scamp 2 during your Sword Eater is absolutely insane. Uh, there's a few other cards you could consider playing in it as well. I'm not quite sure if they'll get included, like Lothar. But I think the deck is already one of the best in the meta, and just by adding Harbor Scamp, I think it stays up there.
Mm-hmm. Base, what do you think of Lothar and of the general state of Warrior?
I mean, Warrior seems pretty strong. I definitely think that Rush Warrior is going to be a dominant force in the meta this whole next expansion. I don't think Lothar will be in it. 7 mana randomly rush into something sounds uh, not great. Um, it's not a bad card. I definitely think it's more for Big Warrior if we ever see a resurgence of that. But it's a fun card. I like the design of it, but I just don't think we're going to be playing it for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But Warrior's going to be all right.
Yeah. Agent PWE, what do you think of Lothar and of Warrior?
Uh, this card sucks. When I put minions in Rush Warrior, if they don't say Rush, I'd like them to say win the game, and this one says neither of those. So it sucks there. Big Warrior lull, and other Warrior. Why am I playing 7/7? Maybe attack the relevant minion on board and maybe miss, and then I lose the game. Uh, Seems pretty awful. I would say it's definitely not underrated. Pretty good arena card though. Warrior, I'd say Rush is probably still good. It's got some new cards you can throw in there. Uh, Rush Warrior is like inherently not great. I feel like it's just like a glorified arena deck, but the new quests are pretty low power level themselves. So maybe I think the few new cards like the Pirate, we'll see Warriors sticking around one way or another.
Hmm. Now, for our next card, let's talk about the class that everyone forgot and that we haven't talked about today either. Based, why don't you bring us in?
So my last top card is Shady Bartender. And I think I don't know. I'm not that optimistic about Zoo, but if Zoo is the thing, it's because of this card because they got a tradable and wider buffing Fungomancer. So we do actually have a way to capitalize on taking that early board, and we also can get rid of it when we lose board, which is probably just a death sentence. Maybe that doesn't matter, but this card seems a lot better than the 107 that it got on the rankings.
Hmm. Um, I'll ask Agent PWE here. What is your thought on the Shady Bartender?
Shady Bartender, good if you're somehow playing a lot of demons in like a Zoo deck. Zoo sucks. Can't discard a Hand of Gul'dan anymore as easily. This is unplayable. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Hmm. Justin, anything to add about Shady Bartender?
Yeah, I think Zoo's pretty unplayable. Most of the theory crafts for it don't even run this. I think the tradable is kind of a bait because when you have a whatever deck like Zoo that needs to take the board early and power spikes by spending all of its mana in the early turns, the cost of spending 1 mana to trade it to cycle it is higher than compared to other decks where I don't know Priest Control Warrior decks that are more reactive that spike later are floating a lot more mana. Zoo, if you're whatever face hunter, if you're not curving out, you're really sad. And there's just not many demons you even want to run Zoo. I don't know. At first, I thought this card was bad, but then I reread it and realized that it doesn't give all minions +2/+2. It only gives demons. And perhaps I was wrong with my initial assumption, but yeah, I don't know why this card is a thing.
Hmm.
It may be a low wear down the line. It'll see play. I mean, it's definitely a powerful effect if you have lots of demons.
Yeah. In terms of our next Tonk card, Justin, why don't you tell us what card you were going to bring here? I think this is a really spicy one.
Yeah, so Goldshire Knoll is my card. I think this will go in Handlock, as most people have already talked about. And I think it might make Handlock help it come back. There's the new demon Anatheron, which combined with this, they both cost 1 when you have a full hand. If you're on the coin, that's 3x redundancy, that you'll have 10 cards in hand after tapping on turns 2 and 3 and can really cheat something out on turn 3. So half the time when you have the coin, most of the time they're going to get to cheat out a big boy on turn 3. That seems pretty powerful. And then the other thing that I think most people are overlooking about Handlock is that both of its new big demons, the new Mountain Giant, the Dark Fiend Pack, and Anatheron, are both demons. So it can have some really nutty health swings by going like Anatheron plus Mosher plus Broom and just healing for 11 and removing something big. So I'm not super confident Handlock's going to be a thing, but if it is, I think this card's a big reason for it. And then the other place this card can see play is in Evolve Shaman. Tiny Toys, as BWE talked about earlier, is the nuts, especially in an Evolve Shaman deck. And if most of the theory crafts for that have every card to keep up hand size for stuff like Coaster, every card is hand size neutral, which means that if you're on the play and you play the weapon on 5, start at turn 6, your null costs 3. The same thing for on the coin. If you play coin weapon on 4, then start of turn 5, your null costs 3. And that's even better if you play something that draws 2, like Dungeoneer on 3 or Narlax on 3. So being able to, on turn 5 or 6, be able to play this alongside something else for your remaining 2 or 3 mana and remove something from your opponent and then get a random 10 drop. This is the only new 10 drop added to the pool, so 10s are still quite good. Again, I'm not confident Evolve Shaman's going to be a thing, but again, if it is, like, this is a huge reason for it. So with the two of those key parts and maybe off meta decks that may be making a comeback, 79 out of 135 felt quite low to it for me. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
Oh
I
yeah. Oh,
think.
sorry. Last thing. In Control Warrior or something like that, any deck that runs Athletic Studies, if you go Outriders, Axe Farming, that could be another application. You're not hard running this, but you're going to be really. This card's going to pop up. You're going to be really happy to see it sometimes.
I mean,
Sorry, go on.
no worries. I'm very afraid of cards that can go very mana efficient in weird conditions, and this is one of them. So I have to say I think this card has a weird potential. Base, how do you feel about the null here?
I'm excited about the null. I think that Evolve Shaman isn't gonna be real. It looks scary with the tiny toys, but I trust them that they won't do that to us again. I do think that passing the first few turns is just gonna be a death sentence. Maybe um, the like discounting battle cries somehow gets us there, but I'm not as afraid in Evolve Shaman. But yeah, I think Handlock's gonna be a deck. And we are supposed to talk about Warlock right now, right?
Yep.
I do think we'll see a bit of quest lock too. I think that we got some nice healing options with the Spice Spreadbreaker, and then we also have the AOE of the Karen customer. And I think that is really what's going to push Handlock to be viable. But we got some nice tools in this and the Mountain Giant and Atheron to actually push an advantage of having all these cards in hand and
Mhm.
end games with the Wind Fury man.
Mhm. Um, Agent PWE, what do you think about the null and the state of Warlock?
I- Any card that says costs one less is always a potential to be game breaking. I think this card is good, like you said, in Handlock, and Handlock would like the early removal to make up for it not doing anything. I don't think Evolve Shaman is real. The weapon just sucks too much, being 3 attack. Uh, Warlock with the quest, I agree, that could be playable. Handlock seems like it has a lot of support. Zoo Warlock is a joke, and I think we'll definitely see more Warlock now than we see now, which is basically none unless you are 10,000 legend.
Mhm. Now, Agent PWE, why don't you talk about your final Tonk card?
Yeah, my final underrated card is Blessed Goods. It's the 1 mana paladin spell, and I don't really think that this card is good per se, but I'm under the impression that Quest Paladin will be playable in some way or another, and you like have to play this card in there because it gives you 2 ticks on the quest because you just play it and discover a secret, and maybe sometimes you don't choose the secret because the quest is done, and then that's cool too. But like without the quest, this card sucks. And but if the community thinks the quest has any chances, then this card definitely should be better than 101 out of 135.
Mhm. Now, I want to ask you, what do you think about Paladin? Is Paladin playable next expansion?
I'm a big believer. This might have been made obvious since the start of the stream in the hand buff Paladin becoming a thing. I like the new weapon. I like all these divine shields and the divine shield synergies. I like the new draw card, the neutral cards that draw. I think there's just enough above average playable cards for Paladin that it could really come back and have some pretty strong deck in one way or another. Librams could also make use of a couple new cards and maybe become a thing, but uh, stupid pen flinger not going face, it makes me question whether that will actually happen.
Mhm. Yeah. Justin, what do you think of this card and of Paladin?
This Quest Paladin was one of the ones I was most hyped on. I did a lot of theory crafting work on, and I think this card's bad because it doesn't even go into any build of Quest Paladin. I'm not quite sure how you build it, but I just don't think it's good enough to be around. Uh, it's kind of that simple. I made ones that were trying to really turbo out the quest with like 21 one drops, and I don't think it's one of the best 21 you can run in the deck. Uh, you just rather run Pen Flinger in First Day of School and Aldor Attendant and Libram of Wisdom, and then a bunch of minions that actually do stuff. So I don't think you'll see any play.
Mm-hmm. Now, Based, what do you think of this card and of the State of Paladin?
I also think that you don't want this card. I think doing this to activate quest is real bad because then you have to pick a secret, and secrets are garbage. They're only good if you pull them out of your deck. But I think that Paladin's probably in a pretty good spot. We got City Tax to actually take care of the set to 1 that Libram Paladin has. So we have better ways to clear boards as Libram Paladin. I think that Quest is going to work. I think you might even be able to just throw it into Libram Paladin and have that as a finisher, just slowly grind them out by just making big dudes every turn.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll have to see how it works out. I'm excited to see what happens, and then I do think that the buff Paladin's going to be another solid deck.
Awesome. Now, you may notice we're done with classes, but we're not done with cards. I have my final card, which is actually Lady Prestor. I think this is a very underrated card. It is heavy RNG and it's very weird, but I really like this card, and I think it's going to be in play, especially um in Quest Paladin, in any deck that plays a ton of minions. Getting a 1 mana Ysera or a 2 mana Onyxia or something wins the game on the spot. And I think this card is severely underrated as the number 113 according to the sheet. So I'm expecting us to see Lady Prestor more than this. Um, Agent PWE, any thoughts on Lady Prestor?
I could see this card being put in something like Paladin, Quest Paladin, where your cards suck, and then maybe it eventually on turn 6 makes your cards suck a little bit less or a lot less. Um, whether it's good, I'm not sure, but I could definitely see it having some applications one way or another.
Um, Baze, any thoughts on Lady Prestor?
I'm excited to see what it does. It's definitely going to high roll some games, and I think that once it finds a home, it's going to be really sweet. But right now, I don't know where that is.
Awesome. Justin, any thoughts on this one?
My thoughts are similar to what you said about conditioning. That yes, this card's underrated, but it's so weird and unique. I don't think it'll see play. But we know how conditioning went, so yeah, I'm open to having my mind being changed. This doesn't seem like a neutral Ysera Unleashed to me, but if I squint, maybe I don't know. It certainly. I mean, it seems more like Elysiana or Elise or something. Like once you're done with your deck's main purpose, then you have like a bomb at the end. That's never been something that you've wanted to run in an aggressive deck in the past, but this one's a lot stronger than the ones in the past. So maybe.
Mm-hmm.
It would not shock me. I think this is a good call from you.
So, we're done with the main part of our review. We're now going to do 3 quick questions. So we're not going to talk about each other's opinions because we do want to go to bed at some point. Our first question is going to be, what is a new tier 1 deck that we're going to see? And we're going to start with Agent PWE.
As I was hyping up before the Rogue quest, I'm a firm believer in Quest Rogue being good. Okay, and hoping that it'll be good. I could just rename an already tier 1 deck, but that would be no fun. So I'm looking forward to seeing these SI cards get played, and then you just scabs them once, twice, maybe even 3 times in one game.
Sure. Um, next we have Based. What is a new deck you think is going to be tier 1 Based?
All right, we gotta wait for Flow to get nerfed, but then we'll have Fire Mage. Will be the best mage. Maybe not tier 1, but hopefully, I think that'd be pretty sweet. Once they start forcing us to play some minions, Fire Mage will have a chance to shine.
Okay. Next, Justin, what do you think is a deck that is going to come up this expansion?
Yeah, I'm a Quest Paladin believer. I don't know. What can I say? I've spent so much time theory crafting it. I still don't know what the best list is. There's ones that really try to turbo the quest on 5, because obviously if you're going first on the play, you're gonna see, not counting the quest playing on 1, you're gonna be seeing 7 total cards. Oh, sorry, did I do the math? Yeah, sorry, 6 total cards by turn 4, and 2 plus 3 plus 4 mana is 9. So it's possible, if you get like a first day of school plus Penflinger, if you're drawing only 1 cost cards, to have the quest complete and the reward down on 5. It's possible to put enough 1-drops in your deck to build it consistently. So that's one way. Another way is, go a lot slower. I think Based has mentioned this before, just play it like Libram Paladin. Play not many ones and just have it as, hey, after Pen was nerfed, just having a bunch of Librams of Wisdom wasn't enough as a finisher, but what if we combined a bunch of Librams of Wisdom with 6/6 of stats every turn for free for 2 mana? Maybe that's enough to actually finish games, and we actually don't look to complete it very quickly, but we throw back in the reactive tools of Libram Paladin with whatever your Barov, your Justice, combined with the new card City Tax, which looks pretty neat as a reactive deck. I don't know quite how it's gonna be built, and I could be very off base, but it seems good enough. I don't know. There's some cute synergies there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a believer.
I'm going to go with a weird deck that I said in the beginning, but I gotta say that Quest Hunter is actually going to be tier 1. I think I really like the Quest, I really like Raza kind of decks, and I'm excited to see this work, but I gotta say I think all of these have a good chance, especially once Flow gets nerfed. But as for our next question, I want to ask you all, what is the card with the best art? And I want to open with Justin this time. What is the card with the best art, Justin?
Oh, sorry, I was muted. I really like the Encumbered Pack Mule. I think it got alluded to earlier with some of the hand buffing decks, but it may see a decent amount of play, and I don't know, it's pretty cool. It's just a horse with a bunch of bags on him with a cool looking expression.
Yeah.
And
Based.
the best part about this art is you'll see 2 of it oftentimes.
That's true. It's double the cuteness, or smugness. Based. What is your favorite card art?
My favorite card is the Line of Lost in the Park, the Druid quest. Protect the Squirrels is the greatest card that's ever been made. It's just so good.
Yeah. Now next, I have an interesting one that I just talked about, but I think Lady Prestor looks so cool. I really like this card. I think it just looks fun, it looks strong. Plus dragons. What is cooler than dragons, right? Agent PW, what is your answer?
I mean, I think this is the most obvious one is Elwyn Boar. I mean, just look at it. If that's not the cutest thing you've ever seen, even if the card is a complete meme, the art is definitely worth appreciating. Gives me Snow
Okay.
Flipper Penguin vibes.
Okay, wait. Good card may be cute? What? It's a vicious feral boar.
Look
Have
at
you
it, it's
ever
so
been to the
small
American
though.
South? They're causing havoc down there, eating all the native flora and fauna. That's not cute.
This is a
Go
baby
out and
boar.
hunt those things.
I could punt this thing across the room if I wanted to. It won't hurt anybody.
As for our final question is, what is the worst card in the set? And I'm actually going to answer this first. I think the worst card is Dreaded Mount. I love Dreadsteed, but this is just so slow. Like, Warlock is never, ever, ever going to do this. You have way better options if you want to play this slow. And like the 1/1 doesn't actually do anything. It doesn't synergize. You don't have something like Libram. This just looks awful to me. It's one of the worst cards, if not the single worst card in the set. I do want to bring Agent PWE next with what do you think is the worst card in the set?
This one seems like another obvious one, but Two-Faced Investor. It sucks. Why? I have no words to describe this. It's just terrible. I know I'm not supposed to comment on other people's cards, but the Dreadsteed, that card also sucks. When I was reviewing the set with some other people, we considered whether we'd play Dreadsteed itself for 0 mana, and we concluded that we wouldn't even put it in our deck at 0 mana. So both these cards are really bad.
Mm-hmm. Now, next, Based, what do you think is the worst card in the set?
All right, you're opening your packs and you hear that wah legendary, and it's Auctioneer Jackson, and you just lost out on legendary. It's the worst card. It's the Wolf Ram Shield of this set. I guess somebody pointed out that if you made a copy of it, it's kind of sweet because you can get 2 cards every time you trade. But like, eh.
Fair. Justin, what is in your opinion the worst card in the set?
Hey, I think I put something here, but Base has won me over with her argument. Yeah, because of the disappointment after the wah on Jackson. It's not even flashy like some quest that may end up being bad, because obviously not all the quests are going to be good. It's just clearly bad. Anyways, yeah, the one I chose was Rats of Extraordinary Size, because I just don't, I mean, tons of cards won't see play, like the others mentioned, but why was this printed? What? It's like Two-Faced Investor, like... Remember when they had the 6-mana card that summoned 1/1s that gave him Rush? Like, why are we printing a worse one with that? Oh, okay. We're already ahead on board, and Erdi on turn 6 was Hunter. Erdi winning the game. We get some 1-mana 5/5s. That's cool. Yeah. It seems like a Yu-Gi-Oh card. Like, I'm not sure why it's in Hearthstone. And there's 2 rats humping each other. It's just like incongruities all over.
Fair.
Such a complicated effect in like mechanic and programming for a card that will never see play.
Fair. I believe that is it for our card review. We're at the 2-hour mark, so I'm just going to do final remarks, and we can go and have a good night, have dinner in Base case, or whatever you all want to do. I'm going to start with Base. What are your final remarks for tonight?
I am super excited for the set. I'm going to try so many things. I think the meta is not actually going to shift that much once things settle, but I think that these first weeks are going to be absolutely a blast. People are going to be playing all sorts of stuff, but we'll likely be playing a lot of the same decks we were playing before with some retooled stuff and a few new decks. But I think that this set looks like more exciting than it really is going to play out to be in terms of like meta defining.
Mm-hmm. And one more time, thank you, Base, for being here tonight. Next, Agent PWE. Final remarks, anything you want to say, and one more time, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I think there's some really strong cards in this set. I think the quests are probably more fun than they are actually competitive. But I think that we'll get some meta shake up here, or at least I'm hoping so. And I'm looking forward to that rolling out shortly.
Yeah. Finally, last but not least, Justin, thank you for being here. What are your final remarks? Anything you want to say?
I want to say that I'm looking forward to Owl beating Agent PWE with Big Warrior, as promised. And that is all. Actually, nothing else that I'm looking forward to life. That's my sole aspiration and goal. But that'll be pretty sweet. So hopefully by then I'll figure something out.
Sure. One more time, I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank all our viewers. tomorrow there will be a second card review. We're having a special wild review with the Rotted Zombie, Dr. Fish, Jailstorm, and Tom Carter. So you can join them tomorrow at 9 p.m. to see what wild people are actually thinking. Is this set going to impact wild? Is it not? Who plays wild? That is a great question. That being said, that is it for us tonight. Have a good night, everyone, and we'll see you all really soon. There will be team reveals this week as well, so tune in. A lot of stuff is going to happen. Later, and have a good night.